Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on Life and Surround. This is a quick first impression of the Harmony Codex by Steven Wilson. I was able this morning to listen to the whole album, and I listened to the streaming Atmos version. I have a 7.2.4 Atmos system. So my streaming device is an Apple TV 4K. It's kind of on the old side, but it works just fine for streaming Atmos. My AVR is a Denon X6400H. And like I said, I have a 7.2.4 speaker array. That means 7 speakers at ear level, like, classic 7.1, 2 subwoofers up in the front of the room, and 4 height speakers, 2 above my fronts. And then the other 2 are kind of in the back of the room, somewhere near the surrounds and up above ceiling level for all the heights. Okay, so I just thought that might be helpful giving some context, because in this day and age of Atmos, you could be listening through headphones from a phone. You could be listening through a sound bar. You might be listening to the 5.1 bed track. If your system doesn't make use of the Atmos metadata. So just wanted to give that context. All right, so first impression. This is Steven Wilson. He is an absolute master, in my opinion, of mixing into Atmos. He is also brilliant with 5.1 and 4.1. But Atmos gives, a lot of options, object-oriented mixing. You can place stuff like anywhere around the listener, and he has learned the art and mastered the craft. So I can tell you that even via streaming, this Atmos mix is very pleasant. It fills the room very nicely. It has excellent separation of parts. It is engaging, it's immersive, and it has some moments of active panning. And in my opinion, the mixing choices, the panning choices fit the music, and they are rather interesting choices in and of themselves. The music sounds well recorded, like we've come to expect from Mr. Wilson. The caveat being that he hasn't really gone for a completely hi-fi sort of sound. So he's got some lo-fi elements. In some cases, that is quite intentional. Like, he'll record an acoustic piano and it'll start out sounding totally normal, and then he'll add some tape hiss and add some detuning and just some reverbs that really start to color the voice of the instrument. All right, so that kind of segues into what I'm hearing on this album. This album, to my ears, favors electronics and synthetic sounds. It has organic elements really spread all throughout the album, although there are some passages where it's mainly an electronic thing. But in terms of organic sounds, you have moments of live drumming, you have some bass guitar. There's one track, I think it's later in the album, comes close to like what I would call like bass shredding. Like, it has a prominent like upfront bass part, where the song is driven by bass for a while. And I really thought that stood out in a good way. We have acoustic guitars, moments of acoustic guitars. We have electric guitar leads on at least a handful of tracks. Nothing approaching shredding like we've seen on some of Wilson's previous albums. I would say mostly like Gilmour-esque, where the playing is economical and feeling based. No runs of just, like virtuoso shredding. And then we have vocals, of course. We have male and female vocals. I think the male vocals are mainly Steven Wilson. We may find out that they are entirely his, though there were like some spoken word moments where I wasn't sure if maybe he had a guest vocalist. And then we have Nanette Tayeb. Gratefully, I think she's actually on a number of tracks, but her most prominent track is Rock Bottom, where we get basically an all-out duet. And so That leads me to another observation. I've seen people writing over the last several weeks that Mr. Wilson's music presently seems to have a lot in common with later Peter Gabriel. As such, I find that to be rather a good thing. I have really appreciated what I've heard from Peter Gabriel's current project, I.O., and that project seems like it should be wrapping up maybe in the November, December, January timeframe. And hopefully we will be getting the whole album released sometime around then. And I'm hoping for an Atmos release and for a physical Atmos release. And regarding the Peter Gabriel connection, I actually thought that the track Rock Bottom paid some homage to Peter Gabriel's Don't Give Up, given that they share a topic of just really gutting it out and hanging in there, and then also that it's a male-female duet. So we've got a good Atmos mix. I bet it's going to come across even better to me when my standalone Blu-ray shows up. Should be any day now. I ordered it from Burning Shed. That's just the vendor that made the most sense to me. Your mileage may vary. The deluxe sets are already sold out, and I was not one of the lucky orderers, but a local friend of mine has his on the way, though he did receive that dreaded delay notification. So I expect the next time I listen to this album will be my standalone Blu-ray. And then my local friend very kindly is going to come over and share his deluxe unboxing and just, that first appreciation experience with me. And I've offered to throw the album on to my Atmos system so he can hear the album that way. So I'm going to be revisiting this album plenty, and we'll see, how it grows on me. So far, I've seen reviews all the way from, I just got through listening and nothing from this album grabbed me. It feels more like a soundtrack than an album of songs, all the way to people saying, I love this, every second of it, totally enthralled. This is the greatest Steven Wilson album yet. So I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I thought there were some standout moments. I think there are some songs that are going to grow on me as a song, as I give myself a chance to just be fully present and fully immersed and to really just crank this thing up. I have more of a favorable impression so far with this album, the Harmony Codex, than I did with the previous album, The Future Bites. This album, I think, does reach back and pay homage to previous Steven Wilson solo albums occasionally. Like the album opens up with what sounds to me like some sort of a violin figure with some dissonance, and that reminds me a bit of Grace for Drowning. I hear a little bit of Raven, particularly in like the tortured piano parts that he lays down, like in Impossible Tightrope. And then I hear some No Man, I hear some Blackfield. And, of course, this album is just its own thing. So we have a blend of electronic with organic. I think it's actually rather well balanced. We have some rhythm programming, we have some live drumming, we have some obvious, upfront bass work. We've got some guitar soloing. We've got Nanette back, and I've heard rumor that Wilson might be contemplating doing like a whole record of Nanette songs, where at least she's on every track, and I would completely welcome that. She is just a most welcome addition to this record, not only on Rock Bottom, but I really believe I heard her adding like at least some overdub, emphasizing parts on some other tracks. Standout track for me is Impossible Tightrope. It just has the playing that I really want to sink my teeth into, and I find it compelling in its composition as well. It has that kind of Raven-esque piano part. It's got that kind of sad thing going on that really resonates for me with Steven Wilson material. I would say the weirdest track so far, just from my first impression, is Actual Brutal Facts. It's got this like spoken male vocal part that is almost a rap. I'm not sure exactly what to call it stylistically, but you'll know what I'm talking about when you hear it. And it's different. And you got to give Steven Wilson some kudos for always being willing to just try whatever comes along and strikes his fancy. So I actually really respect that. it remains to be seen how well this album is going to grow on me. I think that there's going to be plenty of moments for me to sink my teeth into upon, like repeated and dedicated listenings. So that's been my first impression. Thank you for watching. I invite you to leave your comments below, either suggestions, for me for what to include in forthcoming the Harmony Codex videos, your impression already having listened to the album, whether it was stereo, whether it was Atmos. And one thing I'm curious about when the deluxe set is here and I get to experience it with my friend. So far on Apple Music, I'm not seeing any bonus tracks. It's only the 10 album tracks. And I can't recall if Wilson has done that before with his digital releases. I'm used to just with anybody's release on album day, going to a streaming service and finding all the bonus content from the deluxe set available in stereo, at least. So I was a little bit surprised just to see the 10 album tracks. And it is often the case for me that the bonus content grabs me a little more strongly than some of the content that Wilson chooses for his albums. He seems to focus on flow, and I totally get that. It just happens that often the individual tracks that grip me hardest tend to be in that bonus area. Okay, so that's all for now. Like I said, please leave your comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell for multi-channel music related content, reviews, news, interviews, all that sort of thing. I appreciate your support, and I hope you all are having just a marvelous The Harmony Codex release day, and that you're all finding a way to live life in surround.